Al Capone is giving a press conference while his barber gives him a shave. The reporters are eating up everything he's saying. Capone claims he is merely a businessman. Just as a reporter asks about Capone's reputation as a violent man, his barber nicks his cheek, drawing blood. The barber is terrified as the world seems to stop spinning, until Capone says it's all right. Capone says there is violence in Chicago, but not by him or anyone associated with him. Meanwhile, two of Capone's associates are trying unsuccessfully to get a local barkeep to carry their beer. The hood tells the barkeep not to worry about it because they won't be coming back. A sweet little girl gets some water just as the hood is leaving the bar. The barkeep asks about her family as he fills her pot. The little girl notices that a shadowy figure has left his briefcase. She grabs it and rushes to make sure he doesn't forget it. The shadowy figure's name is Nitty. He ignores her and walks to the getaway car as the briefcase explodes, killing the little girl and everyone in the bar. Elliot Ness's wife writes a note and secretly leaves it in his lunch as Elliot reads a newspaper about the 10-year-old girl that died in the explosion. Mrs. Ness encourages Elliot. Mrs. Ness is a supportive wife and partner. Elliot is introduced to the press by the chief of police. The press asks a bunch of silly questions and Elliot leaves. A cub reporter tries to get the lowdown from Ness. He offers to help, but Elliot isn't interested. Elliot meets the flying squad and gives them a rousing speech about the holy crusade they are about to embark on together. Ness tells the men that they have a lead and he hopes that the men have signed on for some action because they are going to get it. Ness gives a young cop advice as they wait to move in, but who is Elliot to give advice? He's got a lot to learn himself. Elliot discovers the note his wife left. It reads, "I am very proud of you." Elliot notices someone lurking. It's that pesky cub reporter. Ness breaks in like a soldier of God. He shouts, "Let's do some good." The pesky cub reporter gets an embarrassing shot of Ness because there is no alcohol, only umbrellas. Elliot wanders the city dejected. He looks at a paper that says Crusader cop busts out. Elliot tosses his wife's note in the river. A street cop named Malone, played by the legendary Sean Connery, rousts him for littering. Ness asks him if he doesn't have more important things to do. Malone responds, "Yeah, but I'm not doing them right now." The confrontation is escalating, so Ness reaches for his badge. Malone stops him by putting his nightstick on Ness's chest. The nightstick hits Ness's holstered gun. Malone wants to know why Ness has a gun. Ness tells him that he's a Treasury agent, which satisfies Malone, and he continues on his way. Ness follows Malone and asks him angrily why he turned his back on an armed man. Malone repeats back what Ness told him. "You're a Treasury officer." Ness asks how he could possibly know that. Malone says who would claim to be that, who was not. Malone drops the mic and continues on his way. Ness goes full Karen and asks for Malone's name and unit. Malone is unfazed. He asks what Ness's beef is. Ness said he had a rough day on the job. Malone asks, "Are you going home now?" Ness says he was about to. Malone says that you have fulfilled the first rule of law enforcement. When your shift is over, make sure you go home alive. Another mic drop. Connery won the Academy Award for this performance. He deserved it. Ness ponders what he's just heard. He realizes that he has spoken to a wise man. The next morning at Al Capone's headquarters, we see the accountant Walter making sure all the numbers line up. He'll be important later. He puts a report in a breakfast tray prepared for the big man. Capone sees the headline, "Crusader cop busts out." He chuckles to himself, secure in his power. At the police station, Elliot has become a joke. All the cops are laughing at him. Everyone shuns him at the station. One of the cops has taped the headline, "Crusader cop busts out," to his office door. Elliot owns it. He pins the headline to his board. Ness couldn't feel lower. It's like the whole city is against him. Things feel hopeless. A woman is waiting to see him. She explains that it was her little girl that was killed in the explosion. She thanks him for fighting the good fight through her pain. He sees the damage the gangs are having on the ordinary, everyday people of Chicago. A child was killed, the most innocent among us. Odds be damned. The crusade must continue. The crusade must be won. Elliot tracks down Malone, who lives on Racine Street. That'll be important later. This isn't Malone's first rodeo. When someone comes to his door, he grabs his sawed-off, which he hides in his phonograph. He's not gonna get caught by surprise. It's just Elliot. Ness wants to form a small squad of hand-picked men so there are no leaks. Malone sees how green Elliot is and wants no part of a suicide squad. Things escalate as Ness appeals to Malone's sense of honor. Malone fiddles with a religious medallion, a symbol of his highest aspirations that he thought were long abandoned. Malone refuses to join. He admits that he'd rather stay alive than fight evil. If only Ness had met him 10 years and 20 pounds ago. The next day, Ness finds a strange nebbish man sitting at his desk. The man's name is Oscar Wallace. He's been assigned to help Ness. He has a plan, a crazy plan to get Capone on his taxes. Ness is discouraged by this egghead. He excuses himself from his office. He can't believe he's making no progress when he sees Malone down the hallway. Malone is gruff and to the point. "Let's go," he says. "What's wrong with here?" Ness asks. "These walls have ears," Malone retorts. Malone takes Ness to a church. He fiddles with his medallion as they talk. He asks Ness, "What are you prepared to do?" He explains the Chicago way. "They put one of yours in the hospital, you put one of theirs in the morgue." Ness says he's sworn to do everything within the bounds of the law to put Capone away. Malone asks Ness if he knows what a blood oath is. Ness says that he does. Malone offers Ness his hand. They shake. "Good," says Malone. "Because you just took one." Malone starts teaching Ness. He tells Ness to trust no one. Malone says that if you are afraid of getting a rotten apple, don't get it from the barrel, get it off the tree. So they go to the police academy to get a fresh apple. The first guy is a total nerd and unsuited for the rough work of an untouchable. Ness asks who the best shot is. Meet Stone Pistoler Extraordinaire. He could shoot the wings off of a housefly. Malone calls out Stone because he changed his name to hide the fact that he's Italian. Malone is about to whip him when Stone breaks. He's had enough and puts his revolver under Malone's chin before he can strike him with the whip. Malone laughs. This is his kind of guy, the kind of cop that won't be pushed around. They all laugh. Malone's meanness was a test and Stone passed. He joins the merry band of Untouchables. Malone says that everyone knows where the liquor is. They just don't want to cross Capone. He hands out shotguns to the Untouchables, and they make their way to a bank. At a closed service door, Malone asks Ness one last time if he's ready for the war he's about to begin. Ness says he is and cocks his shotgun. They burst in and Capone's head honcho tries to stop them, but Malone hits him with the butt of his shotgun. The Untouchables celebrate with cigars at an Italian restaurant. Ness asks Malone about his medallion. Malone says one end has the key to his call box and the other is a medallion of St. Jude, the patron saint of lost causes and policemen. The cub reporter finds them and takes a photo of the Untouchables. In contrast to the Untouchables' small gathering, Capone and his lieutenants are enjoying a black-tie dinner. Capone tells some jokes, and when he's behind the guy that got raided by the Untouchables, he whacks him on the head with a bat. He keeps whacking until the man's blood turns the white tablecloth red with his blood. Ness watches his wife lead their daughter in prayer before they tuck her in. After that, Mrs. Ness asks Elliot to brush her hair. "You know what that means, ha ha ha." Ness shows Oscar Wallace the latest headline about the successful raid. Oscar tries to get Ness to listen to his idea about getting Capone on income tax evasion, but Ness doesn't understand. An alderman visits Ness. The alderman is played by legendary Chicago improv comedian Del Close. Close plays an alderman, which is a city councilman. He tries to bribe Ness, but Ness throws him out of his office. The bribe was Capone's carrot. Ness is about to get the stick. Ness is on his way home when Nitty tells him that he has a nice family. He says, a man should take care, see that nothing happens to them. Ness tries to catch Nitty, but Nitty speeds off. Ness checks on his daughter and she is safe. Ness sends his family away to safety. The Untouchables rush to Ness's house. Malone got a tip on a shipment of liquor coming in from Canada. At the Canadian border, the Untouchables and Canadian Mounties go over the plan, which is, when Ness gives the signal, and only when Ness gives the signal, the Mounties will close in from the Canadian side of the bridge. The head Mountie, a silly man, says that surprise is half the battle, but Ness retorts that losing is also half the battle and that they must focus on what is all the battle. This is one of the themes of the movie. The Untouchables wait in a hunting lodge near the bridge on the Canadian border. Malone tutors each man, sharing his wisdom as they wait, calming them and conserving their energy before the battle to come. Finally, a car appears, a signal is given and a truck appears. This is it. It's going down. Malone warns the men to shoot to kill because that is exactly what Capone's men will try to do to them. Ness reminds them that the Mounties will not move in until the signal is given, but that silly Mountie doesn't follow the plan. The Mounties are moving in before the Untouchables are in position. That dirty scoundrel, Malone says, "What the hell? You've got to die of something." The Untouchables mount horses and charge into battle like heroes of old, like unto knights or cowboys off to fight evil in the name of truth, justice, and the American way. Capone's men try to escape the Mounties as the Untouchables arrive to cut them off from the American side of the bridge. Stone takes one out but gets wounded, which makes Oscar go nuts. "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." Malone captures the bookkeeper. Oscar takes a drink from one of the leaking barrels. Ness chases a triggerman to the hunting cabin and is forced to kill him, much to his regret. They take the bookkeeper to the hunting cabin and interrogate him, but he won't talk until Malone grabs the guy Ness killed earlier and blows his dead brains out of his dead head. The bookkeeper pees himself and sings like a stool pigeon. When Al finds out about the loss of the Canadian shipment, he loses it and says he wants that Nancy boy Elliot Ness dead. Mrs. Ness gives birth to Elliot's son. He and his wife are so happy because of the new member of the family. Elliot tells his wife that she is married to the man that brought down Al Capone. Oscar is taking the bookkeeper to a safe house in an elevator. Unfortunately, Nitty, disguised as a cop, is the elevator operator. Nitty kills the bookkeeper and Oscar. The shots draw the attention of the other Untouchables at the police station. Ness finds the bodies of the bookkeeper and his friend Oscar Wallace, R.I.P. Oscar. Next to Oscar's body, written in blood, is the word touchable. Malone cuts Oscar down. A corrupt old cop warns Malone to get out of town because Capone's men aren't done. Elliot goes to Capone's hotel to confront him. Capone mocks Ness. Elliot goes to pull his gun, but Malone stops him and drags him out of the hotel before Capone's men can kill him. Elliot is talking to the DA, who wants to drop the charges. Ness is ready to give up too. Malone asks him if this is it. Ness says it appears so. Malone tells Ness to stall the DA. Malone thinks he knows how to find the accountant. Walter, the accountant, has been subpoenaed. If Ness can get him to testify, Walter will be able to send Capone to jail, so Capone is shipping the accountant out of town until things cool down. Malone goes to a cop bar and finds the cop that warned him to get out of town. Malone asks him where the accountant is. The cop won't say. Malone and the cop fight. Malone pulls a gun. Malone calls. He got that dirty cop to talk over the phone. He tells Stone to tell Ness to meet him at his place on Racine Street right away. Capone goes to the opera and tells the press that he is a peaceful man. He says that in an all-out prize fight, it's the man who is left standing who is the winner, which is the theme of the movie. Nitty and Knife Guy show up at Malone's place. Nitty wrote Malone's address on a matchbook. Knife Guy stalks Malone, but Malone gets the drop on him with his shotgun, but he doesn't kill him. He kicks him out into the alley where Nitty is waiting with a Tommy gun and shoots Malone. Malone crawls back into his apartment. Nitty goes to the opera and tells Capone that the job is done. Elliot and Stone arrive at Malone's Racine Street apartment. They find Malone bleeding to death on the floor. Malone reaches for something. Ness thinks it's his medallion, but Malone is reaching for a train schedule. Malone found out from the dirty cop which train Walter, the accountant, is going to try to escape on. Malone looks into Elliot's eyes and asks him, "What are you prepared to do?" A final lesson from Malone to Elliot, a final challenge. Ness and Stone rush to the train station to stop Walter the accountant from escaping. They separate and take up positions at the entrances. Ness spots a mom struggling to climb the stairs with her baby and luggage. He is concerned that she'll be caught in a crossfire if the bad guys show up. He wants her to get clear of danger. As he helps her up the stairs, Walter the accountant and the bad guys arrive. Ness sees the guy he punched in the nose at Capone's hotel. Just as the nose guy realizes it's Ness, Elliot shotguns him in the gut. Ness lets go of the baby carriage, which begins to fall down the steps. A huge gun battle erupts. Ness kills a few more bad guys. Ness runs out of bullets. Before he can be killed, Stone rushes in and throws him a gun. Ness kills a bad guy as Stone saves the baby like Ty Cobb sliding into home base. The only bad guy still standing is Knife Guy, the one that helped Nitty kill Malone. Knife Guy pulls a gun on Walter the accountant and threatens to kill him, but Stone shoots him. The baby is okay, and they've got the accountant. Walter testifies in court. He links Capone to the money, but Capone doesn't seem bothered in the least. He even falls asleep. Ness notices that Nitty is carrying a gun in court. He has him removed. The bailiff makes Nitty empty his pockets. Nitty has a note from the mayor allowing him to carry a gun. Ness uses Nitty's matchbook to light a cigarette and notices Malone's address on it. He tells Nitty that he used to have a friend that lived there. Nitty panics and shoots the bailiff. Nitty tries to escape up the stairs. Ness gives chase. Nitty gets cornered on the roof. He tries to escape down a rope, but the rope doesn't go all the way to the ground. Ness struggles with killing Nitty for killing his friend. A darkness fights for Ness's soul. Will he shoot Nitty? Even he doesn't know. Finally, he decides to arrest him. As he is leading Nitty off the roof, Nitty says that Malone died like a stuck pig. Nitty says that Ness should think about that when he beats the rap. This is a bridge too far. Ness shoves Nitty off the building. He falls to his death and lands in a car. Stone tells Ness that among Nitty's belongings was a list of the jurors and amounts they were bought off for, bribed. No wonder Capone was falling asleep. He bribed the jury. Stone asks Elliot where Nitty is. Ness says he is in the car. The judge won't do anything about the bribed jurors. Ness says that he has broken every law he has sworn to defend and that he is convinced that he has done right because there is only one way to handle killers like Capone, and that is to hunt them down. The judge is unmoved, so Ness asks to speak to the judge privately. The judge switches juries with another courtroom. The DA asks Ness what he told the judge. Ness says that he told the judge his name was in the ledger too. The DA says the judge's name wasn't in the ledger. It was a bluff and it worked. Suddenly Capone is freaking out. He demands his lawyer do something, so his lawyer changes his plea from not guilty to guilty, but that's not what Capone had in mind. Capone strikes his lawyer and has to be restrained. Elliot gets in Capone's face. He tells him, never stop fighting until the fight is done, which is the whole theme of the movie. Elliot's last words to Capone are thus ends the lesson. Elliot leaves triumphant. Ness is cleaning out his office. The job is finished. Elliot looks at the headlines that have charted his journey from abject failure to total success. The final headline says Capone sentenced to 11 years. He files them away. Their history. Ness looks at a picture of the Untouchables after the first raid. The Untouchables have accomplished their mission and now they are no more. But they, and Oscar and Malone, will live on in memory and legend. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispin shall never go by, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. Ness gives Stone Malone's medallion because he would have wanted a cop to have it. The cub reporter asks Ness what he's going to do if they repeal Prohibition. Ness says he'll have a drink. The music swells as we leave 1920s Chicago and the movie ends. The Untouchables is a great movie, a fable from a time that never existed even though I wish it did. Good guys were on one side of the line and the bad guys on the other. There are no shades of gray. In case I have not mentioned it yet, the theme of this movie is never stop fighting until the fight is done. Whenever a character gets comfortable or doesn't fight to the finish, they suffer loss. It's a natural law of the Untouchables universe. This law is even given an in-universe name, the Chicago Way. Sometimes I think that theme is like a natural law in the universe of the story. Kind of like gravity is a natural law in our universe. Thanks for watching Epic Story Recaps.